Welcome to the Family Beacon podcast from Minnesota Family Council with hosts Grace Evans and Moses Brattrud. Stay informed on the top stories on life, family, and religious freedom. Get the facts, stand for truth. Hello and welcome back to the Family Beacon podcast. My name is Grace Evans. I'm here with Moses Brattrud. Today we have a lot of things to get through, a lot of things to update you guys on. As a reminder, we get you the facts every single Friday. We give you the facts so that you can stand for truth. We research the top stories on life, family, and religious freedom so that you can understand what's going on, not have to sift through the news cycle on your own, because every week there's just so much and it's like, what do you even pay attention to? What shouldn't you pay attention to? And that's what Moses and I do. We take it upon ourselves to sift through everything, to sift through the noise, and then bring you the facts, because that's what you deserve. Here's what we'll be talking about today. We'll be talking about the election results from the Minnesota primary. Very exciting, interesting to talk about. We also have a huge religious freedom win here in Minnesota that I am so excited to tell you guys about. And also, we're going to be talking about some comments that our Attorney General made on comprehensive sex ed. Hint, spoiler alert, he's a big fan. And then Moses is also going to brief us on what comprehensive sex ed is, and just policy-wise what MFC supports and what we don't support. All right, let's go ahead and dive into this episode of the Family Beacon podcast. Moses, tell us what went down at the primary yesterday as we're recording, as we're speaking. It went down like a few days ago by the time you guys are listening to this, because we are recording on August 10th. That's right.
So, yeah, the primary on Tuesday, August 9th. Very interesting to see those results. So, a couple of the biggest ones. What we expected to see, that Scott Jensen won the gubernatorial primary for the Republicans, that the endorsed candidate Jim Schultz won the primary for Attorney General, beating Doug Wardlow. That was the only actual contested primary. Well, no, that's not true. There were other people. There's always other people running, right? But they don't generally, like, if I haven't heard of them by election day, then generally I think that they don't stand a chance.
That's usually true.
So that was interesting. Then in Minneapolis, in the 5th District, we had kind of an interesting situation. Ilhan Omar, a congresswoman from Minnesota's 5th District, she actually triumphed very narrowly.
I know. I was so happy to see that, you guys.
Yeah. So her opponent, a guy named Don Samuels, and he's a longtime community activist Democrat. But his thing is that he's just more pro-police than Ilhan Omar. That's pretty much one of the...
That's why he decided to run, actually.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and so he's pro-police. He's pro-police building relationships on the north side of Minneapolis and other places so that they can do their jobs better. So he and Ilhan Omar found themselves on opposite sides of the debate last fall over whether Minneapolis should scrap its police department. So he got almost half the vote, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah, insane. Can I read you a quote that he said about it? This is National Review reporting. The candidate, Samuel, said, "My only hope is that my opponent will have learned a lesson from this. You cannot give poor constituent service, put your own dreams above the visions and dreams and desires of your community, hold scant and scarce town hall meetings, not be able to press that serves your community, and get reelected easily." True.
There you go. Yeah. I think that sums it up. So we'll see. It's a solid Democratic district. So the Republican candidate, Cicely Davis is her name. She's going to have an uphill battle in November for sure. Another in CD1, which is the southern part of Minnesota, and we sent out an email to our constituents about this. This was not a primary. This was a special election, which came about because of the death of Representative Jim Hagedorn in office. So this is a special election to fill the seat from basically now until January, and then there'll be another election in November with the same two candidates, Brad Finstad, Republican, and Jeff Ettinger, Democrat. And in this case, Brad Finstad won by about 4 points. So we still have a Republican congressman for that district. So it's interesting if you live in the southernmost part of the state, talking about anywhere from just the bottom tier of the state, but also up into Rochester, up to the Rochester area. Just be aware that this was probably a bit of a closer race than people were expecting it to be. So be aware of that. Be aware of political trends in your area. And as far as other races, you can find the results online. Especially pay attention to who has been nominated by the different parties and who's now won the primaries. So these people will be on your ballot in November for your state, your local state offices, your state senator and your state representative.
That's right.
Those people are so much more important than you probably think they are, and they play a big role in St. Paul. They play a big role in how our lives are going to go, because the state government is, as I say, a lot more powerful than people give it credit for. Now, speaking of, so we saw some wins this week in the elections, but we also saw a religious freedom win for a Minnesota pharmacist. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, so first of all, Moses, I just have to say I really appreciate that you love keeping up with all the election stuff. And I do too. I know who I want to vote for. I care who wins, but you're really nerdy with it in a good way. And I think that's really good. I like having a podcast co-host that's really into that sort of thing and really good at tracking it, really good at predicting things. So appreciate that, because honestly, I'm elections, whatever. I mean, they matter. I think they matter so much, but I'm it's just the primaries, the results. I don't know. So I'm glad that you care, and I'm glad that you have this enthusiasm and that you keep up with this so in depth, because I was okay, these people won, but I didn't know how tight the races were and things.
Sure.
Also, you have a great tie on. Look, I'm complimenting you so much.
Man, this is I'm blushing. I think this is one of my favorite ties. It was given to me by my friend Zach.
Aw, Zach! Shout out to Zach.
I'm actually hoping that I got to see him in June, which was great. I had not seen him before that since 2018, but I hope that I'm also going to be able to maybe do a road trip with him in October, because I think we're both going to be groomsmen in a wedding of our both of us.
What color or what kind of flowers are those?
Oh yeah, so.
Are you blushing that color?
No.
Okay.
So this is a Liberty tie, folks, and I just want to say to all our male listeners, check out ties from Liberty of London. They have some of the
Are they affordable,
coolest,
Moses?
Well, this one is, because it's Liberty of London for Target. But
it's very classy.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, check out Liberty of London. I think they have. I really respect a man who can wear a sick floral pattern and just pull that off.
Me too. Or guys.
So that's what I try to do.
Or guys that can wear pink dress shirts and still look good wearing it. You have a striped one that's white and pink.
I do like that.
And that one looks good. Yeah. Some guys, it's a no-go. It just doesn't look good on them, And you're
I honestly think it's easier with dark hair. But
that
anyway,
is true, because
this
otherwise,
is not on topic.
I just wanted to keep the chill vibes, keep the positive vibes. Everyone needs a little bit of laughter.
Grace, I want to hear about this religious freedom win in Minnesota.
I bet our audience does too. So this is a case that was taken up recently. This incident occurred, however, in January 2019. And here's what went down. Basically, there was a woman whose birth control failed, and so she went to a pharmacy. She went to Thrifty White. I don't even know what that is, but apparently it's
a pharmacy chain, and it has branches in northern Minnesota.
Apparently it is, but I've never heard of it. I don't know. Yeah. Probably a CVS, I'm guessing. So anyways, she goes to this Thrifty White to get a prescription for Ella, which is, it's a name, it's the name of a morning after contraceptive that basically would create an early abortion. And if you have questions about Plan B or the morning after pill, maybe we can even do a full podcast episode, maybe an unwoke video on it, showing and explaining why actually it would be an early abortion. Because it does. It actually prevents a fertilized egg from implanting in the uterine lining, which the life has already been created. Yeah. So it is an abortion. But we could do a full video on that if you guys have questions. So anyways, she went to Thrifty White to get her prescription filled. And the pharmacist that was there was a Christian, actually. And so he said that he didn't feel comfortable fulfilling that prescription, and said that she should go elsewhere to try to seek that service because he's a Christian. It goes against his religious beliefs. So this case was taken up because he got sued by this woman because she said it was a medical emergency, blah, blah, blah. And he said it was his freedom of religion that was being trampled upon. So this was taken up. And so when I heard this was being taken up, I was like, oof, this does not bode well for the Christian pharmacist, right? Because we all know the cake baker story.
Right.
We just... but then I also thought of our friends Carl and Angel Larson, who spoke at Lead, which they won a huge religious freedom case, which we could talk about another time. So I guess there was precedent for wins here in Minnesota, but still, I was like, this doesn't look good. Anyways, his testimony was this week, and everything, the trial was this week, and this is a quote from the pharmacist. He said, this is how he testified. He said, "It's my belief, based on lots of reading and thinking, that this fertilized egg is a new life. If I do anything to prevent that egg from implanting in the uterus, the new life will cease to exist." I'm a Christian. I believe in God. I love God. I try to live the way he would want me to live. That includes respecting every human being.
Bam.
Boom. I know, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's just dynamite. I love it because he talks about the science, but then he also talks about his faith. And it's
Yeah.
they're not on opposite ends. Like, they're not these two opposite ends of a battery that are like trying, like
Exactly,
they
yeah.
go together. And kind of like your talk for lead about how Christianity and politics and how that needs to impact your worldview. So, then this is the woman, she testified, this is her statement, part of her statement. She said, like anywhere, there are challenges to living in a rural area. Okay, guess it was rural, so that's why I haven't heard of this pharmacy.
Yeah, this is way up northern Minnesota.
And her attorneys, of course, were at Gender Justice. Our friends, no, not our friends.
Yeah, look up Gender Justice. It's actually
boy.
kind of scary,
is,
this
yeah.
group and the amount of influence that they have. Really a lot of behind the scenes, but they were also partly behind this recent abortion case, which saw many of Minnesota's pro-life laws struck down. So they are up to no good, I'm sad to say.
Yep, that's exactly right. Anyways, she continues, she says, I never expected that these challenges would include the personal beliefs of our local pharmacists or that they would hold and wield such enormous decision-making power over my life. I can only hope that by coming forward and pursuing justice, that others don't have to jump the ridiculous hurdles I did. Which the reason I laughed, I was trying not to, but like, it really is ridiculous that it's 2022, Moses. It's 2022, and we're still having people come forward and say that they're on the side of abortion and they're also on the side of justice. It's like, let me have the right to kill my baby or to have my baby killed. I'm on the side of justice. Like, it's 2022. We have so much advanced medical technology.
Yeah.
We know that baby is a human being.
Absolutely.
We know exactly what abortion is.
Yep.
So the euphemisms, love that. The perversion of words, totally 1984,
And
right?
She's doing this thing where she's claiming, like, the whole way that this is phrased was probably written by her attorneys. And it was like, it's all about rights, It's like this
and
pharmacist.
she had to drive to like 2 different pharmacies to find her abortion pill. Oh,
my heart
the
bleeds.
atrocity.
It's just, yeah, it's like
a medical emergency. It's just like, what?
the idea that pharmacists can have their personal beliefs, but if you bring that into your job, if you bring that into the workplace, if you bring
Only
that
if
into
it's a
your
Christian
voting,
belief, though.
yeah, if you bring that into the workplace at all, verboten, that's bad. You're going to be slapped down. But that's not how it turned out.
No, so this was a very high-stakes case, as you
Yeah.
can imagine, for all of Minnesota, honestly, for our country. Like, National Review is reporting on this. This is picked up by a lot of major news outlets, and I saw the headline, and I was like, Minnesota pharmacist, wow. So it got a lot of attention for its medical implications, also for, like, the latitude healthcare workers have with transgender treatments. It also would apply to that. So everyone is following this pretty closely. And thankfully, the pharmacist won. So praise the Lord for that.
Yeah, the basic, and the unfortunate thing, Grace, as you and I discussed as well, is that this guy won. And that's partly, I have to think that it's because of the Masterpiece case, and it's because of the Telescope Media case. The Supreme Court has made it very clear, and lower courts, that religious freedom is very important.
Yeah.
Even in this day and age, we've seen some great rulings on religious freedom, and you have to meet a very high standard to trump religious freedom, right? So we saw that this pharmacist won the case, but I was really disappointed to see that the judge also ordered him to pay $25,000. Now, he won the case, guys, but he's ordered to pay $25,000
In restitution.
In restitution for, I think, quote unquote, emotional harm.
I know. I thought that was so dumb. I was like, are you kidding me? Emotional harm?
So I feel like the judge felt like his hands were tied, that he could not rule against the pharmacist because of the clear precedent, but that he had to like get that little jab in there. Blah, blah. And $25,000 isn't chump change. So no. I honestly hope that there's a way for that to be vacated and for that to go away.
Another story, though, Moses, that I want to tell you and our audience about is the comments that Attorney General Keith Ellison made on comprehensive sex ed and the statement he released and what he signed on to with 16 other attorney generals. So there's a new law in Florida. We've all been tracking what's going on in Florida. Like, first there was the so-called Don't Say Gay bill, which we covered on this podcast.
Yes.
But the new law went into effect on July 1st, and it prohibits classroom instruction on sexuality and gender ideology from kindergarten through 3rd grade. So that's very common sense, in my opinion. I think most parents would support that, right? Like, okay, kindergarten through 3rd grade, these kids don't need to be taught in school about sexuality and gender ideology.
Yes,
common sense,
exactly.
right? 3rd grade. I mean, isn't 3rd grade like, how old is that? 9?
It's young.
It's really young. Like my sister's in 5th grade and she's 11. Yeah, so I must be like about 9.
Yeah.
So that's young. Common sense, right? Well, Minnesota Attorney General Ellison took it upon himself to publicly comment on this law, stating that preventing teacher discussions of gender ideology and sexuality towards young children is extreme and discriminatory towards LGBTQ plus students. Excuse me, LGBTQ plus IA, rainbow, black circle dot, white circle dot, blah, 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 triangle. Like,
it's so impossible to take it seriously.
So when I see like flags and I'm driving through Minnesota, some of them don't have the new circle, the white circle, or the black circle. I honestly forget how many there are now. It's like just the rainbow flag, and I'm like, oh, discrimination. They're not including everyone.
Whenever someone asks me, like, are you LGBTQ plus? I say, yeah, I'm a double black diamond. So only very advanced skiers.
What? I'm not tracking?
You know how like ski
Oh. You're so funny. Okay, wow. But there's more. It does not stop here.
It doesn't stop there.
Oh no. Ellison also took it upon himself with 16 other attorney generals from around the U.S. to file a joint amicus brief challenging the parental rights in education law, oh my gosh. And it's been labeled as the Don't Say Gay bill, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this amicus brief filed by him and the other attorney generals basically claims that this law is harmful and unconstitutional, right? Unconstitutional.
It's just really hard to take it seriously anymore.
It really is. So here's part of our attorney general's statement. And this is why I'm telling you, elections matter, you guys. I kind of went on a little rant on Instagram yesterday, on my personal Instagram, of like, I'm super blessed to be able to vote, like, the people that have literally died so that I could use my voice, so that I could live in this comfort. And like the least I can do is use my voice, my vote to build a better America.
So I'm sorry, are you saying that you killed people so that you could vote?
No, what I'm saying is other people have died so that I could use my vote.
But who killed them?
What?
I don't understand why.
I'm talking about the army.
Oh, okay. This is unclear.
Moses is so tired.
For a moment,
we need to give you some coffee.
For a moment, I really was thinking that Grace was like actually killing people, like on her way to vote.
You actually thought that?
Maybe with her car.
Say that with a straight face. You actually thought that?
No.
That's what I thought. Okay.
I'm using my wry sense of humor that God gave me.
You're ruining this beautiful point that I'm making.
Okay, excuse me.
People have shed their blood so that we could live in this country, and freedom just doesn't continue if we just sit on our butts and do nothing.
What you're saying is that freedom isn't free.
Yes, freedom isn't free. And we have to continue to build a better future, to build a better tomorrow. Using your vote is one way to do that, right? Okay, I had a point with that. But, that's what I was saying. And so the Attorney General is one of the positions that's opening up, so we got to vote for the right people, right?
Yes.
And we don't want Ellison, because this is one of his statements. He said, essential to being able to live with dignity, safety, and respect is being able to say loud and clear who you are as a human being, to speak your truth, which that sounds so like Kantian. You know? Wow, we're nerds. Anyways, he says, but under this law, Florida kids can't speak their truth. Their truth. Note, their parents can't speak their truth. Teachers can't speak their truth, which this doesn't make sense, because it's like, it says that their parents can't speak their truth. Literally, this is called the Parental Rights in Education law. Yeah. It doesn't say anything about parents not being able to talk to their kids. It only says that in kindergarten through 3rd grade, teachers can't be instructing kids in the classroom on this, right? And it's not saying the kids can't talk about this. It's literally preventing teachers from indoctrinating children, right? Yeah. And also, this emphasis on like their truth. It's like, well, there's only one truth. There's objective truth. But in the modern era, that's become prevalent, right? It's like your truth, your dreams. That's
I do have my own dreams that are in my head.
As do I.
There's one.
We have very different ones. Yeah, but
so
there is objective truth.
Yes.
So, this is his continued statement. He says, as a result, outcomes for students are worse. What? How? They can still learn about this if their parents want them to, right?
Exactly.
Literally, like, it's just like they're not allowed to be indoctrinated by the state, right?
Yes.
And then he says, teachers can't teach the reality of our society. Are you kidding me? The reality? Like, you're saying that because teachers can't teach kids, kindergarten through third grade, that if they're a girl, they can be a boy. They might be a boy, in fact.
Right.
That is reality.
Yeah.
Okay, and then he says, LGBTQ kids and their families live in a climate of intimidation and fear, and everyone is harmed. As Attorney General and as a human being, as if this is like a war on human rights. That's what he's making it out to be.
Of course.
He says, I can't sit by and watch that happen without trying to put a stop to it. So this is after, note, that he was like, it wouldn't be right for me to intervene with these abortion restriction laws that have been struck down. He was like, oh, it's just like, it's not right for me to intervene, not my place. And this was in Minnesota. And now this thing is freaking in Florida. And he's like, oh, let me insert my unwanted toe into this corner of the United States and let me put my foot down. And it's just like, well, not that this is going to do anything. Don't you fret, you guys. This Amicus brief literally does not matter.
Imagine Keith Ellison in a cage fight with Ron DeSantis. I don't think Keith Ellison would triumph. No.
This is 100% virtue signaling, but it just goes to show, again, use your freaking vote, please, because we do not want Ellison again. He's just the terrible Attorney General.
We need an Attorney General who will uphold life, who will uphold religious freedom, who will uphold the family, and Keith Ellison does not do any of those things. It's sad to say it, but it's true.
Oh, there's facts right from Moses. Okay, Moses, so we talked a little bit about these concerns about this ideology that's being pushed on children. We've talked about it before. Something that we've heard a lot recently, too, and probably our listeners have heard about, is CSE, or comprehensive sex education.
Yeah.
Now, we sent out an action alert about this probably about 2 years ago now, a year and a half ago, which our constituents were able to get involved in. But can you explain what it is in simple terms, like a brief summary, and then why exactly it is so dangerous?
Yeah. The truth of it is that it's all in the name. It's comprehensive. And the idea is that from a very young age, we need to be teaching kids, and I'm going to try to discuss this at a PG level, okay, just so that everyone knows that, because there's some really shocking stuff, and I'm not going to go into the dirty details because this is a family-friendly podcast. So the fact is that there are people who say, Grace, when public school educators teach kids about sex and gender, starting in kindergarten, I've seen the kindergarten curriculum for at least one form of comprehensive sex education, and it's actually publicly available. Anyone can look at it. I'm going to have to remember the name of it. If I do, I'll link it in the description.
I think we've linked it before, so I can go back.
We may have done. So, and that one was being used in Minnesota schools, which is how I ran into it. So, from kindergarten and on, students need to learn about concepts that we generally think of as being for either adults or much, much older students. And those concepts include sexual orientation, gender identity, and the idea of consent. Well, yes. Yes. So what I've specifically seen in curricula for really young kids is not birth control, not like nuts and bolts discussion of that, but certainly discussion of consent, and certainly discussion of sexual orientation and gender identity. And the idea seems to be that the younger kids are exposed to this, the more comfortable they're going to be with it, which some people see as a good thing, and I do not see as a good thing.
Have you read Brave New World?
Yes, I have.
Doesn't it kind of make you think of that?
Absolutely.
Like in that book, okay, I've read it a long time ago, and I'm rereading it right now, which is why I thought of it. I'm like halfway through. But I don't really fully remember the details of the second half. But anyways, it talks about like how the kids from a very young age, from like basically infancy, are encouraged to like participate in sexual behavior. Like it's seen as a good thing because kind of that world, it's a dystopia, even though it sounds like it would be good. The idea is that the best thing in the world is happiness, and so they forsake like everything else. Like they forsake a meaningful life for happiness, so they'd rather have a meaningless life that's happy rather than a meaningful life that has pockets of happiness and unhappiness. And so the primary good in the world is happiness, so they're like, oh, like sexual activity for kids, great. Like they're taught to do that. They're taught to play, not on a playground as kids, right? And so honestly, it's very reminiscent of that to me, which is scary because that's written as a warning.
In that book, sex is used as a tool of control, which is also something to be wary of, including for kids, but also for adults. And that's certainly taking place in our culture. So that's comprehensive sex ed in a nutshell. This obviously we could go into a lot more detail. So the danger of that is that one of the big dangers is who is providing this education. Can we trust
True.
them?
True.
The biggest provider of comprehensive sex education
Planned
in Minnesota
Parenthood.
is Planned Parenthood and in the
Ugh.
country. And that's they write the curriculum, and Planned Parenthood employees are sometimes and volunteers are sometimes the people in the district actually delivering this training. So it's not even teachers sometimes. It's not even qualified teachers. And so that's really worrisome. But it does come down to the idea that of who has the authority over a child's education. I'm going to get to that in a second. But I do also want to talk about the alternatives to comprehensive sex ed. So the biggest alternative that I think a lot of our listeners are going to be sympathetic to is the idea that sex education does not necessarily belong in public schooling. Like, this is a really private and sensitive area on which families have various differing beliefs on. So why don't we allow parents to decide whether they want to send their kids to a optional sex education class or choose to do that in the home, and they can find out the goals of these different curricula and decide whether their kids are going to be subjected to that, rather than ultimately the teachers and the school board getting to decide who's exposed to this curriculum. So there are alternatives. And even if I grant you the point that this should be taught in public schools, there are a couple different alternatives. So first of all, there's abstinence-only sex education, and if you're going to do it in public schools, if you're going to teach this in public schools, I think this has to be something you consider, because the idea is that kids should not be engaging in this type of behavior, and then that should be enforced through curriculum. Now, that seems to be very unfashionable to talk about right now. So something that is a little bit more acceptable to talk about is sexual risk avoidance education. And there's various forms of this, and I think it can't be all that great, because I see people that I disagree with on everything saying how good it is.
Oh boy, yeah.
But to be fair, at least what the idea is that if kids need to know anything about this, they need to know the risks associated with sexual activity. And I did see on one website detailing this that one of the goals is for kids to delay or avoid sexual behavior before they're ready. And that's very important, before they're adults, I hope. And so there are options. So if you are thinking, what is my school board teaching? You can suggest to them better options that are not that are not like super religious or something, that are suitable for the public school, but which are not talking to kindergartners about gender identity.
And also allowed the opt-out, too. I think that's really important.
The parental opt-out is incredibly crucial. And in fact...
Because you're literally paying for that with your tax money, so...
Well, yeah, and what I would prefer to see is an opt-in. So, it won't happen unless parents opt their kids in that. To and that's kind of what I was trying to get at earlier. One thing that's interesting, though, Grace, I think, is just... what is the role of the school here?
That's kind of what I was going to ask you, because I think our audience really needs to understand that, because it comes down to, well, why should parents ultimately be in charge of this topic, right, being discussed?
Right. And so, I saw this interesting article today. It's not about comprehensive sex ed per se. It's really about the role of parents and the role of schools. So what this article is really talking about is... what is the role of schools? So parents have this fundamental authority to direct their children's education. So where does that leave schools? Schools form students both socially and academically. Schools are what the term the researcher uses. Schools are a value-driven institution laden with norms that are passed on to students, either explicitly or implicitly. So that's why it's so important that schools respect parental rights, respect boundaries, because whatever they do, they will be influencing students in huge ways. Schools not only impart skills, they also impart an image of ideal students, their characteristics, and their behaviors. So what does it tell students? What does it tell a 14-year-old when they enter high school and every door has a rainbow flag on it? That kind of thing.
Right, that's right.
That becomes normative for them.
That's a great point.
That becomes normative for them because that's what they see. So one thing that I thought was really interesting here was this idea of abiders. So that's people who abide, just to be clear. And abiders are people who orient their lives around God so deeply that religion alters how they see themselves and how they behave. So this book about the articles about a book is following Christian abiders for whom God suffuses every aspect of their lives. So the examples that this researcher gives is a 14-year-old girl in Washington, D.C., who's African American, and also a white Baptist middle class boy in North Carolina. But they both share this worldview that their vertical relationship with God is the most important. And again, these are kids. That this is something that kids and their relationship with their family, of course, is related to that. So abiders have an advantage. They outperform their peers. They exhibit cooperative and conscientious behaviors. But it's not just better grades. They're able to be self-disciplined. They're able to respect authority, but also be self-disciplined. So they're able to see that when the school says something, it isn't automatically true. So that's really important. So I think this is research, essentially, Grace, that shows that kids who have a strong belief in God and who have a strong foundation of worldview, essentially, they're better able to succeed in school, but they're also better able to avoid the noise, avoid the nasty, bad, gross worldview stuff that they do receive in public schools. Now, as we've said many times before, the best solution is to take your kids out of public schools and put them in private schools or homeschools.
Controversial.
And not just any private school. Most private schools, I would go so far as to say that most private schools are probably not going to be much better, especially on issues like sex education.
Whenever we do speaking events, like me, my dad, or me and you, people always bring that up as one of the questions at the end, because we always do a Q&A of like, what do you think we should pull our kids from public schools? And usually my answer is like, you know your child best.
Yeah.
And so I'm not claiming to know your child. But in general, do I think that Christian kids should be in public schools? No. And there's always pushback. That's why I said controversial. But I do agree with you.
Yeah.
Maybe we can do a full podcast episode on that. Moses,
we can.
What's the bottom line here with this?
I think the bottom line is that we need to have a fundamental conversation and even a fundamental rethink about how we treat education in this country, how we think of it as something that ultimately schools, which in effect means the teachers' unions, are in control of, rather than something that parents have fundamentally chosen to temporarily give their kids to the temporary guardianship of the teachers and administrators of a school. The teachers are the boss. Or excuse me, I said that wrong.
I know what you mean.
Freudian slip. Right now, the teachers are the boss. They control every aspect of your kid's learning day. But what we need to rethink is that parents should be in charge, and that includes even the state education, which is provided supposedly for free, but actually we all pay for it through tax dollars.
Facts.
So that's my fundamental question. Now, that's my fundamental.
I have a question for you.
No, I have a question for you.
You just say what we normally do though, so that they get the joke.
Okay, well, so normally at the end of these episodes, we ask each other what we're reading, which is always fun. But today, because there's been a change in various circumstances, I want to ask Grace, what are you driving?
Oh, what am I driving? Well, Moses, I just bought a car.
Sweet.
What? Yeah, so exciting. I mean, I already had a car, but it was junky. Let me tell you. I threw thousands of dollars at it to keep it running. So I'm selling that. Whoop. And I now have a Volkswagen Jetta.
Das Auto.
Yep, very fun. Moses, what are you driving? And what color is your car? Mine's gray.
Well, funny that you should mention that.
Laughter.
Because I literally also just bought a gray Volkswagen.
What? No way. What year is yours?
I bought a 2012 Volkswagen GTI.
Epic. Mine's 2008, so yours is Supreme. And yours is also...
Mine is smaller. It's a small, fun, hot hatchback.
Yours is also manual and mine is automatic. Yes, I don't know how to do manual. Moses does, though.
I'm a car guy. I don't think we've ever really talked about that on the podcast, and I love cars. It's really fun after about 4 years to be able to get a really fun, exciting, what we call an enthusiast car. So I'm super excited about my new GTI. I drove my family around in it last night. We went to a park, and Brianna loved it.
Aww.
She was like, how is this so enjoyable? Why is this so fun? I'm like, yes, you're starting to get it.
That's amazing. And Moses' greatest dream is that his wife will appreciate cars as much as him.
And it wasn't going that fast, but when I did floor it a little bit, and I had the windows down, and Mary was like, do it again, my daughter.
Aww.
So she loves the wind in her hair.
Oh, she's so cute.
We were talking about maybe she's going to be a kid who really likes roller coasters and stuff.
Probably.
Yeah. I'm not sure they're going to get this, anybody riding with you is going to quite get that same experience, because it's a bit more of a standard mid-sized sedan, but it's definitely a big step up. An
upgrade.
From your Civic.
I pulled up. We were at Lead. I had just bought it, and I pulled up into a parking lot, and Moses goes, "Woo! Look at that professional car," which is true. It does look a lot more professional than my junky 2005 Honda Civic. Let me tell you.
Yeah. So we both taken a step up, which is awesome.
Yeah, that's what we're driving. Next week, though, we will tell you guys what we're reading, because I've been reading some really good books lately.
Honestly, me too.
I'm I really wanted to talk about that.
Should we talk about it right now?
No, we gotta make them wait. All right. I think we're already about like 35 minutes, and we like to keep it at about 35. Over 40, I feel like it's just too much. So
I agree with that.
Don't want to bore you guys, but stay tuned next week.
So next week we will tell you what we're reading, and also have some really awesome content.
We're going to be telling you guys about Lead, some struggles Gen Z faces, and how to overcome it. So tune in next week to hear more about how Lead went and about Gen Z.
So thank you guys so much for watching or listening to the Family Beacon. We so appreciate you. We love that your numbers are growing. So share this with your friends and family. Hope that they also want to get the facts so that they can stand for truth. And now from Grace Evans at Minnesota and Moses Brattrud at Minnesota Family Council.
From Grace Evans and Minnesota Family Council.
Just forget myself there because I'm so selfless, right? Okay.
Wow.
That's all we have for you today. Good night.
Thanks for listening to or watching this episode of the Family Beacon podcast from Minnesota Family Council. Subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts so you're up to date on life, family, and religious freedom. You can follow us on Instagram at MN Family Council and subscribe to us on YouTube to watch our content. Get the facts, stand for truth.